Tomorrowland. The day before we were leaving, literally packing up our clothes, flights in the morning, what do we hear? We get news that the main stage has burned. There's a fire. When a 12-story high stage and 400-story wide stage burns down, how the hell did they clean up all the debris? I was expecting dust and just a mess. It was squeaky clean, as if there was gigantic vacuum cleaners that came and just cleaned up all the debris. How does that happen? I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means. I'm just not. However, when all these coincidences come along, it makes me think. So what if, everybody, Beers Brothers, as creative as they are, and I really wanted to make an impact that would last, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it would hit worldwide headlines in the news for years to come, and people would just talk about it. That, my friends, is the meaning of shock marketing. If it was true, I'm not saying that it was, I'm just saying that it made me think of shock marketing. Welcome back to episode number 16 to the Facts of L.I.F.E podcast, where in every episode, the acronym LIFE means something different. For the L in Life today, let's talk about light it up. Today, I want to talk about shock marketing, also known as shockvertising. What is this? Well, it's basically a strategy that uses unconventional ways to advertise. Obviously, sometimes it could be controversial or it could be shocking. But what does it do? Causes a buzz, grabs your attention so that you pay attention to what they're trying to do. I was really thinking about this because my wife and I just came back from Europe. We're going to Belgium to a huge music festival called Tomorrowland. The day before we were leaving, literally packing up our clothes, flights in the morning, and what do we hear? We get news that the main stage has burned. There's a fire. Now, keep in mind, this stage is ginormous. And what I mean by that is it's about 140 or 50 feet high, and it's like 550 feet wide. If I can compare that so it's easier to understand, I think it's equivalent to 12 stories high and about 40 stories wide. Let's soak in for a second. This thing is huge. And that's what the main event is. It's the main stage. They have 1,200 employees for months working on the stage to put it together, and every night they're just working on it, and then it lights up on fire. Now, what a shame that was and how shocking that could be. But Tomorrowland was established by the Beers Brothers back in 2005. So this was essentially the 20-year anniversary. And this happens. Now, you could probably understand we were pretty confused. Like, what are we going to do? Do we still go? Do we get our money back? Well, it's too late by then because we were like jumping on an airplane. So my wife and I looked at each other and we said, what the heck? Let's just go. Who knows what's going to happen? If it doesn't happen and we can't go, probably get our money back and we'll just go explore and go do other things that could be really fun in Belgium. Fast forward, we get there and we're going and looking around. This place is packed. I think over the years, I want to say in 2005 when they first started, it was like 1,500 people that showed up to these festivals. And over the years, this thing just got really extravagant. It's a globally recognized music festival. These tickets are really hard to get and they're expensive. So, not anybody can go or afford to or be able to participate. So you got to imagine it's a pretty special event. And fast forward, now we got 400,000 people going. And when I got there, we were just excited, right? We're like, yay, we didn't get a refund. Let's go. But of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, let's bring masks. Let's bring stuff to protect. I mean, when a 12-story high stage and 400-story wide stage burns down, you would think there's like plastic fumes, there's debris, there's dust. What are we going to do? So even though we were excited to go, we were also very skeptical on how this is going to play out. When we showed up and got there, it was like a miracle. It was clean. There was some leftover back pieces of the actual stage that was all cleaned up. But that got me thinking, how the hell did they clean up overnight? We're talking about 24 hours, right? How did they clean up all the debris? I was expecting dust and just a mess. It was squeaky clean, as if there was gigantic vacuum cleaners that came and just cleaned up all the debris. How does that happen, right? And if you've ever been to Europe, like their health department and their food and I mean, they're very, very conservative and very careful. So I was very surprised that this happened. On top of that, all of a sudden, miraculously, it just happened to be that Metallica was storing a gigantic electronic stage in Belgium that Tomorrowland was able to go and source and pick up to bring back as their new main stage, right? How does that all happen? It just seemed too smooth. So anyways, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means. I'm just not. However, when all these coincidences come along, it makes me think. So what if everybody, Beers Brothers, as creative as they are, right? Like if you've ever gone to these events, I urge you to watch on YouTube the stage. People are like, it's a live stage. There's, dancers and fire and movement. And you have to have a pretty creative mindset to be able to create something like that year after year after year. And every year it's different. It's a surprise. They don't leak it. You got to show up to see what they've done this next year. And I'm just thinking, like, if I'm as creative as the Beers Brothers are or the Tomorrowland crew, and I really wanted to make an impact that would last, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it would hit, worldwide headlines in the news, which it did, by the way. That would help secure my business or my event for years to come, and people would just talk about it. That, my friends, is the meaning of shock marketing. If it was true, I'm not saying that it was, I'm just saying that it made me think of shock marketing. And if that's what they did, well, I applaud to them because they did exactly just that. So we now have to look at how marketing has changed or evolved. Does it mean that we as an audience need to be wowed or entertained or shocked to buy products or services now? Not sure if any of you remember, but I believe it was in 2012, Red Bull created a big event. They did something very, very disruptive. And they had Felix Baumgartner, an Austrian skydiver. This was in New Mexico, and he jumped out of a helium balloon that was 128 feet up in the air. And he was the first human to break sound barrier, during his free fall. Well, this event was hosted live on YouTube. And, this is 13 years ago, where Red Bull was already out, but is in the United States. And when you get 8 million viewers watching you live on YouTube, following you around the world, that's probably one of the best types of promotions that you can ever promote. And they did just that. What happened? They got worldwide recognition as a real brand. Not only did they spike in sales right after that and everything rose and they made money, it wasn't that. It was the lifelong impact that we are at today. And now Red Bull is being sold all over the world because of that one event that they created in 2012. They got over, 10 billion impressions from people searching who Red Bull was just from that one YouTube live event. That's what shock marketing is. They did something that was out of this world. And here we go. Everybody knows who Red Bull is today. So if you're a business owner or brand or an influencer, I'd really like to know what ideas you have that would be considered shock marketing. Please comment or share, and I would love to hear what you have to say about that. And who knows, maybe if we get a lot of people participating, we'll go ahead and share some of these ideas to see what everybody else thinks. Next, the I in life will be about ignition. If we're talking about lighting it up, like we did on the L to shock up the world, well, there needs to be ignition, right? Why do brands or businesses feel like they have to ignite the audience in order to create this shock marketing or the need for it to shock people or to surprise them or to cause that buzz? Obviously, it all started because of the millennials and then now Gen Z. And it was the influx in influencers and online social media and YouTube and all the online influencers who were creating their own brand or their personalities. And everybody's just trying to top each other off. So what makes brands or businesses want to ignite the audience, to entertain them? I think it's really based on what people want, what they need, or what they want to see. And that means that marketing works best. Buyers buy into the marketing when there's an illusion or identity or escape. It's really what all the shock marketing is really all based around. Next, the F in life, we're going to be talking about fallout. What if your marketing and your ideas or your creativity and your big ideas created backlash or fallout? Well, I can speak on that from personal experience. You see, after 2009, we had that big real estate economic crash. And if you were in the industry doing mortgages or real estate, you were out of work. There was no one hiring you. It was just dead. So, of course, I had to venture off. I had a family to feed. So I went off and got into the direct marketing space. I opened up a print shop. We printed direct mail, real estate companies, junk mail, whatever it was, advertisements in the mailbox so that people could open up envelopes, read it, and respond so they could either buy products or sign up for services provided by different companies. There's one in particular that I want to talk about that kind of falls in line to what we're talking about today. And I was always really good at writing letters or creative that would grab attention, that would make people want to call, right? That it was just always something I was really good at. Well, one day I had a big idea. It was for an insurance company. And, they were saying, hey, we weren't getting enough calls. Insurance is slow right now. We were still kind of going through an economic, downturn, still kind of recovering from that. So I had a big idea. What if I did something completely different? In this campaign, my idea was to create a letter, and it barely said anything. Literally, the idea was less is more. And I remember, just writing a very simple couple of sentences ending with, you must call us now. That was it. Did it work? Heck yeah, it did. Phones were ringing. People were calling in like crazy, but it was not because they wanted to buy a product or service, because my intention was, hey, if I can get enough volume of people to call, then the people who were providing the services would be able to talk through. They just needed live people on the phones, right? And that was not true. People called in and they were angry, confused, or just upset about why they were getting this letter. And there was true business there where people were, asking, hey, what's this about? And we're actually buying. But the insurance company we were advertising for and doing this campaign for was so bombarded with angry people that they barely sold anything at all because they were just putting out fires all day. Well, that was a major, major fallout. And, there's a lot of other companies that have gone through similar things. Balenciaga's one, right? And there was total backlash there. But I think that what it did for me, at least, was it totally taught me a lesson. I want to say that every campaign or any other campaigns that I touch from there moving forward, I had this one lesson of failure or backlash that was always in the back of my mind that would help me make better decisions, to not do anything like that. So with that said, you can learn from backlash or from failure, but it's what you do with it that's very, very important. With that, that brings us to the last part of our podcast today, which is E or emerge. I can tell you from personal experience that I just shared with you all that perhaps you can only emerge once you've gone through a particular experience, good or bad, doesn't matter, right? It's emergence. And that's how you learn, like I was just talking about. Maybe for Tomorrowland, for them, they will emerge no matter what happened because they have loyalty, they have brand, they have community, and tenure maybe. 20 years in the business and you have 400,000 people with sold out tickets all the time. At some point you'll emerge from it, but people will never forget this. So do businesses need chaos? Do brands need controversy to really grow? For the end of our podcast or the end of the show here, I really want to just leave a note touching on the fact that shock marketing, controversy, fallout, backlash, all these things that we're talking about, is it important? And if you have your brand and your business, what will you do? I think that at the end of the day, shock marketing can work if it's something grand and exciting and that will leave a mark. But if your shock marketing tactics or, ideas are only short-lived, is anyone really going to remember it? As someone who spends a ton of time marketing, hence I'm on this podcast right now. It's really to teach, help other people who have gone through certain experiences. And if I can shed my experiences to help with that, that's what I'm trying to do. But if you are a brand or you have a business, I want you to use some of these ideas or, to help your brand or your business, and so that you can make the decisions without making these mistakes. Thank you for joining me today on the Facts of Life podcast. I'm John Doan. If you liked what you heard today or were entertained, please comment, like, subscribe, follow me, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.